Hello, everybody, and welcome to Phillies Extra, the baseball show from the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm your host, Scott Lauber, and we have a big show for you this week. I'm thrilled and excited to be joined by Bryce Harper, who agreed to sit down before a game recently for a conversation that I've looked forward to, well, for a while. In fact, if it's possible to have a white whale, so to speak, after only 16 episodes, this would be mine. And not just because it's Harper, one of the faces of baseball and as accessible a star player as I've encountered in 20 years of covering Major League Baseball. Now, this has more to do with the chance to dive into a subject that Harper and I first discussed last September. The Phillies were in Washington for the last series of the regular season, and Harper wasn't in the lineup for game 162. He was sitting in his locker at Nationals Park when I wandered over to ask about a few things that I was writing in advance of the playoffs. Somehow we got to talking about other things, including his love of food and also his commitment to all natural nutrition and clean eating. Now, this was before he became a TikTok influencer and started making those viral videos in the off-season of his culinary adventures. I'm sure you've seen them. Harper in his kitchen, cooking up homemade banana bread or making date and chocolate peanut butter bark, or brewing all manner of caffeinated beverages from iced vanilla lattes to banana cold brews and strawberry matcha lattes. Anyway, Harper starts telling me about some of his tenets of clean eating. Seed oils are terrible, he said. Worst thing for you. He likes everything to be organic and farm-raised, not store-bought. He eats grass-fed beef, drinks raw milk, and orders olive oil directly from Italy. He uses a Utah-based company called Just Ingredients to get grass-fed whey protein from New Zealand. Like me, he's a big coffee drinker, but while I make my daily run to Dunkin', he insists on only single origin coffee. One of his favorite things to do, something that he said, quote, nobody knows about me, is baking bread after day games on Sundays, except he uses an ingredient called kamut, which is a type of flour that contains less gluten and more protein than regular wheat. I'm overboard, Harper told me. I would say I'm super overboard. And then he said, I feel like it's a longer conversation if you really want to have it. Yes, by all means, let's have it. And now that we have this baseball show here at the Inquirer, I can't think of a better place to do it. Now, since the end of last season, Harper has launched a partnership with Just Ingredients, which includes an NSF-certified product line for athletes and wellness enthusiasts. And of course, he took to TikTok. But the more I thought about our conversation that day in Washington, the more I thought about Tom Brady, who's known far and wide for his high-protein, mostly plant-based diet. And that was interesting to me because even though Harper's only 32, he's open about wanting to play into his 40s. And if longevity is the goal, Brady has to be the gold standard, right? Everyone's heard of the TB12 Method. Well, maybe 10 years from now, if Harper is still hitting 35 homers a year, we'll all be talking about the BH3 method. So I definitely wanted to sit down with him to learn more about his health and wellness beliefs. I wanted to touch on some other topics too, and if you stick with us for the entire interview, Harper shared a few secrets about some cool and new cleats that he'll be wearing later this season. We had so much ground to cover, we only scratched the surface. So let's get right to it. Here's my sit down with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper, welcome to Phillies Extra from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So I wanted to have you as a guest on this show for a little while now, and really it stems from something that we talked about at the end of last season about, your commitment to clean eating, just overall health and wellness. I found it super interesting, and rather than, chatting about it at your locker before a game or, sitting down in the dugout with you, I thought this format would be more conducive to a conversation. So if we can get right into it. I think that you mentioned to me that you and your wife, Kayla, you saw a holistic medicine doctor back in 2020, and it kind of opened your eyes a little bit to paying more attention to labels and ingredients in the food that you eat. Was that kind of the impetus for making some changes? And, can you kind of describe, I guess, your devotion to being all natural, to eating clean and doing this the way you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously 2020 was a tough year for everybody, right? You didn't understand kind of what was going on at the time. It was scary at the time. A lot of people were going through a lot of things. So, people were sick, going through stuff. So I thought to myself, what can we do to kind of be proactive in the situation? Obviously, there was not a ton of research about what was going on at the time. So we kind of flipped the script and we're like, you know what, let's start eating better. Let's start looking at ingredients. Let's start looking at what we're putting into our bodies and our system, and kind of what can we do. And so we went full blown, I guess granola, you could say. People kind of think it's a little crazy, but it works for me, right? It works for Kayla. It works for my family as well, and we feel a difference. You know, obviously, what works for me might not work for somebody else, so I'll never try to push it on anybody else, but I can let people know how I feel and, kind of what I feel on a daily basis. And that's looking at ingredients, that's looking at certain things that you put into your system and put into your body. And that's a lot of, back and forth, right? Like eating things. Okay, hey, I feel this way on this. I feel this way on this. Let's stay away from that. And let's be gung ho on some other things. So, talking about holistic medicine and things like that. My doctor out in Utah that I work with a lot, he went to John Hopkins, went through the whole, route of being a really good doctor and everything else, and kind of went the other way and started doing holistic medicine. And he's incredible. I mean, I do blood work every 3 months, understanding what my body is going through, what it's doing. If I'm going through sicknesses, if I have mold, if I have, all these things in your body. I mean, we travel so much that it can, take a toll on you. So, playing every single day, having kids, being up at night at, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, how can I amplify my body and the way of my life, and feeling great every day, you know, going into it where my body doesn't feel so great because of the travel and all that kind of stuff. So, keeping track of all the things that I put into my system, keeping track of my sleep, keeping track of, I mean, everything. And that's trying to prolong what I can do on a baseball field, but also prolong my life. And I'm not trying to live to 150 years old or anything like that, right? But it's just the prolong of, being able to play with my grandkids and being able to hang out with crew as much as possible and go with him, because at 5, 6 years old, he is ready to roll every day. And so dad has to put that cape on and do that. And I love doing that. So I want to be able to do it to the full extent of, my body and my mind and everything else.
So I'm trying to think back to our conversation. Seed oil, bad, right? Like, there are other things that I know are sort of cardinal rules for you. Can you kind of you said granola? I think last year you used the word overboard. I mean, can you kind of describe, I guess, some of the things the Bryce Harper way? If we were talking about the TB12 method, if we had the BH3 method, what would kind of be some of the ways that rules to live by?
Yeah, and I think for me, like I said, and I want this to be out there of like what works for me might not work for somebody else. And so the things that I do for myself, I believe in wholeheartedly, and it might not, somebody else might not do that. And that's okay. If somebody wants to eat Panda Express and do that, totally fine. I don't care. And I'm not saying just Panda or whatever, but like, that's okay. That's fine. Like, you do your thing. And if you're 80-20 and you 80% good and 20% bad, great. Like, it's very, very hard to stay on the path every single day. And I get that, especially when I travel, but it's became very easy for me to understand what places I want to eat at and where I want to go and things like that. TikTok has been a huge thing for me because I can find so many restaurants around the world or country that we're traveling to, and they're very hole in the wall, mom and pop. And I love that, right? Like your little mom and pop, 8 to 10 seats, breakfast spots, lunch spots, things like that, are so cool because you're able to, really invest in the community of different, cities or towns, and, really rely on local farming, local ingredients. Less ingredients is way better. So I think for me, it's seed oils, is a big one for me. Obviously, trying to eat organic as much as possible. The only thing about organic ingredients and things like that is sometimes it's not the greatest, right? So like you have to read the label, you have to understand what you're putting into your system. But if I can get a lot of things from local farming, Pennsylvania has such good local farming with Lancaster County, obviously, being right there. So we get a lot of our dairy products and our egg products and Anything that is off the farm, that's what I want. They really understand, especially in Lancaster, like how to treat their animals too, and the way they process their stuff and everything else. I do really good on beef, right? Like I love beef products. So my body amplifies when I eat beef. It really does. And so for my blood work and everything else, I can see that. And so I love beef products. If I'm waking up in the morning, right? So I'll just give you something that I do in the morning. So, matcha, I drink matcha in the morning and I'll have a coffee in the afternoon. But in the morning, I do, if I do a beef meatball, I'll do those like throughout the week. Or if I do like ground beef in the morning, pasture raised eggs, sourdough toast, and some avocado with some fruit, right? So it's just like very simple, but it works for me. Like I love that type of food. And people might be like, oh, well, I like pancakes and everything else. That's awesome. I love pancakes too, but I know how I feel when I eat pancakes comparative to what I eat with the breakfast that I do. And I love that type of food. I can kill my craving with fruit, right? Like honey, fruit, things like that. I really, really like that. And so I can kill cravings that way if I am craving something. But don't get me wrong, like I love tiramisu too. And so I'm going to have that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go to a good place, like Toronto has really good tiramisu. There's this place in Toronto that has an incredible tiramisu. And so when I'm in Toronto, no doubt I'm going to have some tiramisu. Is it good for me? Probably not, but I need that craving just a little bit,
Right.
so I can feel that and know, hey, this is what I want. And so that's just certain things that I can kill my cravings on, but staying as on, on plane as I can, understanding that I feel great on certain foods when I don't, feel good on other certain foods. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because we've known you now for a little while, and I think you probably agree. I mean, you're a foodie in a lot of ways, right? You always like trying new restaurants. I remember being in London last year, and you were talking about going to the markets and testing out different things, and so it's not like you don't indulge, but it's just balancing, right? It's balancing kind of indulging some of those cravings, some of those things you like with making sure that you're also making as healthy of a decision as you possibly can for yourself. That's going to make you feel good.
Yeah, I
You know,
mean it's very hard to eat in America. It really is. Like there's certain things in America that aren't allowed in other countries. So when people go over to Italy or all these certain places and they feel better or they feel like they've lost weight but they've ate so much more food, it's because their ingredients are better. They're less and it's all homemade. It's all made properly in the right way. And that goes for a lot of countries that, we're not in every single day, but also it's something that you try to live by each and every day. I love home cooked meals, so my wife cooks before or after every single game, and so that's a crazy part. Like I'm very fortunate to have a wife that wants to have dinner with our family every night, and she cooks for our kids and myself every single night. If it's 11:30 midnight, anything, like she is cooking and ready to go. And so like it's just being able to have that, I'm very fortunate, right? Like I was very fortunate growing up. My mom worked a 9 to 5. My dad worked from 2 o'clock in the morning, blue collar job. But we had family dinner. Like my mom was going to come home and cook dinner every single night. But growing up, I loved zebra cakes. I loved, chocolate, and I loved a Big Mac from McDonald's. I ate a Big Mac before every single high school game that I played. And so like it flipped, right? Like obviously I haven't been like this my whole life. And so, but once I flipped, I won't go back. It's just something that I truly believe in, and home cooked meals and local farming, really good ingredients, less ingredients. I mean, olive oil, beef tallow. But like the thing is about beef tallow too is like you have to get the right kind of beef tallow. It has to be properly done. And so when you go to these restaurants, they're like, oh yeah, we're using beef tallow. Okay, well, where'd your fries come from? Where'd you fry them? Because usually if you have fries and you put them in beef tallow, the fries that are made that are in the freezer already have a coating of soybean oil or anything like that. And so you have to really watch that. Like if you go to In and Out, right? They have fresh potatoes that they throw in their fryer. Obviously, I don't know if they use seed oil or not in their fryers. I know that they're just making changes just because of what the, RFK and everybody's doing now. And so I think it slowly but surely is turning in a different way. And I think for the better, right? Like I think the one thing that I wish was better were kids' meals in like elementary school,
Mhm.
middle school, and things like that. I think we can get better on that. If you look at other countries, they have such better ingredients and meals for kids. And for me, I want those kids to be able to eat properly so they're feeling good in class or they're feeling fresh in class or, it's some kids, it's their only meal that day, like that might be their only meal that they get. And so why not feed them with with a nutrient dense food, with really good ingredients, whole ingredients, and, really let them be able to thrive in class and other things. But like just getting up and walking in the sunlight, like those are like just little things. Like there's so many things on this earth that were put here and put in place for us, that we can get nutrients from, and we don't need vitamins or anything else like that. Like it's nutrients just from the sun, right? Like there's so many things that you can get just from this world and this earth. And I think those are things we need to learn in school too. Ingredients. What can I do? How can I help myself? Putting shop back in school. Being able to. It's such a longer conversation because there's so many things that we could do, just as a community. Gardening, trying to learn how to garden. What I can grow in my backyard. I mean,
Yeah.
just being able to do that, right? And those are things that I want my kids to learn. Those are things that I want them to learn because at the end of the day, I'm not using anything that I learned in school too much
Yeah.
besides, writing and reading and things like that.
Right.
Obviously, I took a different path than everybody else, but there's certain things I think we should learn in school still because kids don't know how to do laundry anymore. Kids don't know how to change a tire. Kids don't know how to, change the oil in the car, or even cook or clean, right? Like there's so many things like we've changed in our house from cleaning products to laundry detergent. If you look at, your main cleaning detergents or your main laundry detergents, right? Like there's so many endocrine disruptors and so many things that just kill your body. That's why they have all these warning labels on them saying, hey, if you ingest this or if this gets
Right.
on your skin, you need to call the doctor,
Yeah.
So like that we make all of our own products or we use certain products of like Branch Basics. If I'm using skin products, it's usually primarily pure or just ingredients, because it's just they're very, very minimal ingredient, and they're not going to ruin, what's going into my body or anything else like that.
I'm picturing you eating a Big Mac before every high school game, and I think Zach Wheeler still does that, right?
Right. Right. I
Um,
mean, it's just it was something like when I was growing up, like it was easy, right? Like
yeah.
there was so many things, but also like, and this, I'm not trying to make you feel old or anything, but like I talked to my
Yeah.
parents about this too. Like when my parents were growing up, they still had the milkman. So like they still had, 6 things of milk on their from Anderson Dairy in Vegas, and they were glass bottles, like and everybody's like, oh well, it's so expensive now for glass bottling and everything else like that. But at the end of the day, like you're going to spend that money in the hospital or bills because you're putting things into your body that is just it's killing you. It's making you sick. So I'd rather spend the money now. And obviously, I'm in a different situation, so I understand that. But for me personally, I'd rather spend the money now, and hopefully, at the end of my life, like not have to spend so much money on whatever I need to do, to keep me going. Right? Like it's just understanding the value in your health. And like if you value your health, then like you're gonna have life and longevity for a long time. And that's mentally, that's physically. Your gut is your biggest thing that really runs your body. And so when your gut's off, your mind's gonna be off, your body's gonna be off. The way you feel, things like that. So, and I'm not a doctor, like I'm not anything, right? But like I said, I know what I feel and how I feel on it, and what works for me, like I said, might not work for somebody else.
So the reason this is interesting to me is that you've said you want to play into your 40s. You're only 32, so we've got a ways to go. But, we've talked about some of the ways your training routine has changed from when you were in your 20s. You're more into Pilates now, right? You do different things in addition to the weightlifting that you would do when you were younger. And I think nutrition goes into that. And, it takes me, like I mentioned, Tom Brady. We all know, right? Like he played into his mid 40s, TB12 method, all of those things. I wonder if you've talked to him at all about longevity and some of the things that he has done, that he is into, that he maybe got into later in his career or midway through his career, that helped enable him to get to 45. You want to get into your 40s as well in baseball. Like, have you had that conversation and said, like, hey, man, what worked for you, and how can I pull from what you do and sort of develop what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really talked to him a lot about it. Obviously, I've talked to a lot of people behind the scenes, from extreme sports to football to baseball to basketball to tennis. There's certain things that football players and basketball players can do that baseball players can't. Things that they can put into their system that would help us tremendously, but we're not allowed to because of the joint agreement and everything else like that. So it's very hard for baseball players to do those, do certain things because of NSF and everything else. But like holistic wise and things like that, you can do a lot of things that help your system and help your body. And so for me, like understanding, the values that people have found that works for them, like I'll try it, like at the end of the day, I'm going to try things and do things. And if they help me, they help me. If they don't, then I'll pass it through and that's it. Right. And so, off-season regimen has changed. If I'm not feeling good, I don't work out. Like I want my body to recover. Like that's, we play 190 games a year, possibly if you're in the postseason and spring training and everything else. And I need my body to recover the best way it can. There's a lot of really cool things you can do, from cold tub to IVs to NAD to I'm trying to think things that I can talk about. But like NAD is a big one for me. Like I get an NAD IV during the week, once every like 3 weeks. I love it. It makes me feel good. Sucks going in. It's one of the worst things you'll ever do. You feel like you feel like you're on a roller coaster and you feel like you're going to be sick, and it's the worst feeling ever. But after the fact, like it feels great. So there's certain products that I'm able to do and I'm able to use that I love, that make me feel really good. And there's a lot of baseball players that are doing these things. It's just we don't really talk about it, right? Like we don't really go out there and talk about certain things. My just ingredients stuff has been huge for me as well. The protein that I put into my system, doing it the right way, understanding when's the best time to do it. Electrolytes, really staying hydrated the best way I can. Glutathione's a big one for me. Turmeric's a really big one for me as well. 95% of turmeric in the country is not good turmeric. It's not pure turmeric, so it's very hard to find. I'm trying to think what else, like product wise, I take that make me feel good for stuff like that. NAD, glutathione, turmeric, omegas, things like that. But like really taking them the right way. And if I don't need them, I'm not going to take them. And so like that's why I do my blood work once every 3 months, right? So like if I'm high on something, then it's like, okay, we need to even this out. If I'm low on something, hey, we need to add this and get it going. Because like your body can fluctuate within a 3-month span, and you're this way or that way. So I had I'll share. So the last 2 months I felt very worn down, and so I tested for mold. I had 10 different sets of mold in my system.
Okay.
From traveling. And that just happens. Like it's part of it. So like when you travel to all these hotels, the air conditionings and stuff like that aren't very good. So I usually, when I'm traveling, I turn my air conditioning off, and I have my purifiers and everything in my room. So like I travel with purifiers and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just, I travel with a purifier called Air Doctor. And so I have an Air Doctor in my room that purifies the air and everything else. So, it's just things that you go through during the season, and it's just part of it. And you just try to, do the best thing you can to get it out of your system and try to get it back, to square one the best way possible.
You mentioned Just Ingredients. The partnership with them seems perfect for you, right? You use the products, you are endorsing those products, and the TikTok videos that you've done are great too, because I think it's kind of an insight into your lifestyle, what you like, how you make some of the food you make. You mentioned your wife does a lot of the cooking. You told me, hey, you do it too, right? Every Sunday you bake banana bread, and that's something that you enjoy doing. How much feedback do you get from teammates and from just, people you're around every day about like, hey, that's really interesting, or, boy, I want to know more about this, or guys asking you a lot of questions, especially the more open that you've become about some of it.
Yeah, and like I said, like I think not pushing it on people. I don't want to push anything on anybody. I want everybody to make their own decision and value whatever they value. And if they value health, or if they value mental stuff, or if they value anything else, or they don't. Like I want them to live their life, and if they're happy and it makes them happy, then great. This is something that makes me happy, so I live this way with that kind of stuff. So teammates will ask me if they are feeling a certain way or if they're going through something. I tell them first thing is get your blood work done. That's the biggest thing. The hard thing about blood work is if you go to a blood work place, get your blood work done, and you send it into, one of the like Quest, right? Diagnostic, whatever. I can't say that word. But if you go into Quest and, you talk to a doctor or whatever after the fact, they usually base your readings off of the 100 people they saw that week. It's way more than that, but just say 100 people. And that 100 people could be, elderly. They could be 45 and over. And so usually if they see your numbers next to them, they're looking at it going, oh, you're super healthy because the 100 people next to you were older and it's not very good. But my doctor bases it off of a 32 to, 35-year-old. And so my levels, he wants to base off of, how I can, be better this way or that way next to, right next to the next 32-year-old, not the, 65-year-old, right? And so when I talk to teammates and stuff like that, like when they get the blood work back, I'm like, hey, you just need to figure this out with a doctor that you really trust, that understands you and everything else, that understands your body. And it can't be a one-time thing. Like this is something that you have to work on over and over. I mean, me and my wife, have been working on it for 5 years now. She's gone through things, I've gone through things. And so it's just helped us, back and forth understanding 5 years of blood work, right? That's so minimal when you think about it, because hopefully this is, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of blood work that I can really rely on, that I can understand, hey, this has never been in my system. Hey, this is, what I've been working on or whatever, that I can revert back to. So it's a really good, map or chart that I can look at. And so when I talk to teammates about it, or I talk to teammates about certain foods or certain things, they really look at me and say, hey, yeah, like I want to check this out. And so whenever I can help in that situation, I love to. But again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not anything else, so I can't read them or tell them or whatever. I can just tell them from my past experience or what I'm feeling. So, I'll keep it super minimal with them, but hey, cold tubs really work for me. This product works for me. This product works for me. Just ingredients, things like that. Keeping it as minimal as possible, just so they can kind of understand it here and there.
I want to shift gears here really quickly to one of my favorite stories that I've written since you've been with the Phillies, and that was kind of about some of the work you do with Under Armour and how much time you put into a lot of the things we see you wear out on the field. You're in there helping them with, figuring out different designs, different themes, different lines that you want to try to test out, different color schemes that you want to use. And, I know you were big into doing the Fanatic cleats right away and wanting to put the fur on the cleats and all of those things. One question I've never asked you, though, is there any idea that you've ever had where they've said, like, dude, that's too much. Like, we can't do that. Let's, or just what gets shot down, out of like the ideas that you bring them and you say, hey, can we do this? Can we experiment with this? Is there anything where they were like, nah, we can't, we just can't do it?
No, not really. I mean, I think that MLB has changed a lot.
Yeah.
right? They've kind of let us be a little bit more outspoken with certain things and cleats and Acuna yesterday's wearing all yellow. That's a big thing for him.
Yeah.
Ellie De La Cruz wears pink a lot. Um, you know, there's certain players that I love watching and seeing and what they're doing. It's really cool to see. You know, kind of what their style is or what makes them tick and things like that. So I think Under Armour does such a good job of kind of letting you know, my mindset or my customization kind of come through. And, when I first came up, I used a gray bat my opening
Yeah.
weekend, and I got in trouble for it. They said, hey, you can't use this anymore. Like, it's not approved or anything else like that. And then a couple years later, obviously, everybody's using gray bats. And so when I first came up, it was very tough for me to show that side, but also stay in line with Major League Baseball and the players and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of players didn't like that either, right? Usually it was 51-49. So like it was 51% the team color and then 49% had to be black, right?
Okay.
So like it was super boring. And so my first spring training, I come in, I have white, blue, and red to match the Nationals, and I come in the next day and my cleats are cut. And so it's like, you had certain teammates that would come in and just cut your stuff because it's not, team oriented or things like that. And so I kind of just had to wear it a little bit. But as I've gotten older, I've been able to kind of have some fun with it and enjoy it. And it's been a blast. I mean, just the communication between, me and Spence and Chris, and a couple other guys with Under Armour, they do such a great job for me. As you guys have seen, I've been wearing those blue cleats a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like those. I think they look really good. Obviously, they're a little bit different. And so it's been a lot of fun. I mean, from the Fanatic stuff and everything else, that was just like something I wanted to do. And it was funny because I remember they called down in 19. They called down and they were like, hey, like he needs to take those cleats off. And somebody told him, well, I'm not going to tell him. You guys want to come down here and tell him? But then like we found out that actually the Fanatic green is actually an approved color for the Phillies.
Okay.
And so at the time I was like, okay, well, I can kind of do that a lot more.
That opens it up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as the years have gone by though, I've been able to wear pretty much whatever I've wanted. My favorite cleats that I'm going to wear are later this year. It's actually the rivalry pack. And so with certain teams, I'm going to wear their colors against them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So like when we go into a certain stadium, I'll have their team's colors as my cleats and my batting gloves. So it'll be, like I said, like a rivalry pack.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like just a cool thing that I could do. And so that'll be some of my favorite for this year. The 10s come out. I'll start wearing the 10s middle of June. And so that'll be my first. It'll actually be a high top. And so
Okay.
that'll be kind of my first high top since like my 1 and my 2. So we kind of wanted the 10 to be a little bit different just because it was, number 10. So we're going to do something really cool with that. But I'm excited. It's always fun, coming up with certain things. Like last year I had the Wawa
Yeah.
and the PSAs. I got in trouble for the PSAs and the Wawa actually.
Huh.
But it was just it's fun to wear. It's fun to kind of bring in the community, and people love Wawa around that area. And I grew up going to Wawa throughout the minor leagues, playing in the Northeast. So it was something that I was able to kind of bring along with me. And it's just always fun kind of coming up with something else. It's hard because you can't. It's hard to come up with things more and more. But as your life goes on, you start doing things for your kids. You start doing things for, just certain things that you loved growing up. I'm going to do like it's like a N64 kind of cleat this year as well. So it'll be really cool. I got a Buckeye one coming.
Oh, nice.
Obviously the Eagles. Yeah. The Eagles, obviously. The Buckeye one's kind of a tribute to Kayla. Yeah, so
I was going to tell you, where you end up seeing the impact of all of that, and you'll see it with Crew when he plays Little League and stuff. Like I have a 9-year-old son, he plays Little League, and he plays different teams, and you see kids with the headbands, right? Or you see kids I saw a kid with the oven mitts, double oven mitts, right? And you're like, Do you understand what those are for, right? It's so you don't break your, like, who's sliding head first in 9-year-old
Yeah,
league?
for
But like,
sure.
they want to do it because they see you guys do it, right? And they think it's
Yeah,
cool, and that's good to see because that means they're watching baseball,
for
and
sure. And I
that's what
think
pulls them in.
for me growing up, like I never wore batting gloves. I never wore arm guards. I never wore wrist guards or anything else. Like I was super clean. Like I didn't, I wasn't able to go into a Dick's Sporting Goods and then, my parents weren't able to go in and spend the money to do that. My dad got a vacation check. He'd either buy me or my brother a glove or a bat with it. But like it was very few and far between. If it was cold outside, I was wearing gardening gloves, like yellow gardening gloves. And so we did that a lot, man. It's just like, so times have changed for sure. Obviously, like it's really cool to be able to do those things now and have the customization on the stuff that I have. But it's funny, like I wear a leg guard and I never hit myself in the leg, but I love wearing it because I think it's cool. And so, I don't know if I'm gonna let Crew do it. I've talked to, Kayla about that a lot, where I'm like, he doesn't need a hand guard, he doesn't need batting gloves, like
Yeah,
just go out and play. Like
yeah,
grab some dirt, swing the bat, go play. Like you don't need glasses. What do you need glasses for?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Obviously it's cool and this and that, but I don't want you to look cool. Like I want you to play good,
right,
So but also look good, feel good, play good, smell good. That's what Jason Giambi used to say all the time.
yeah,
But I think just kind of having certain things and doing those stuff, obviously like having Crew grow up and have a really good glove, have a really good bat, really good cleats, be comfortable. But all the other stuff, like if he wants to do that in high school and things like that, great. But you don't need any of those other things right now at this point.
yeah,
I think it's wild when kids show up and they're 6 years old and they got a, hand guard or anything else. But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of the
No,
way
it
the
is.
game has worked, and it's kind of what it is.
Let me get you out of here with two quick baseball questions. First, you just welcomed Kyle Schwarber into the 300 home run club. He's always had big time power, right? But just watching him the last 4 years, like he strikes me as a guy who's a more complete hitter now at age 32 than he was earlier in his career, and he seems like he's getting better and better and better. Like I'm wondering how you've seen him evolve over the years, and also like if you could possibly imagine him playing anywhere else beyond this year, right? Given what he means to you guys and what he's done for your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him playing anywhere else. Obviously, I don't make those decisions, and so. But as a team leader and a captain and everything else, like he brings so much value to our team, not even on the field, but off the field as well. I mean, you guys know that.
Yeah.
We have such a good clubhouse, and he's one of our main guys of why we do. And so we bounce stuff off each other all the time, and I have so much respect for Kyle and what he's done in this game. And like you said, he's became just such an impact bat. Not just for our team, but in all of baseball. Like people know him as just a really good impact bat. Like he can hit a lefty, he can hit a righty for power, everything else. So it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to be able to talk to him about things, and I'm still trying to talk to him about how to pull a baseball into the seats. So he just brings so much value, not just to like I said, on the baseball field, but off the field as well, for all of us. And he's learned from a lot of really good guys, from John Lester to Lackey to Dempster to all these other guys like Arrieta. He just learned such a good way of kind of bringing a team together. He's does such a great job of that. He really hogs that DH spot, though, I can tell you that. But he's great, man. It's been so much fun to watch. Obviously, being able to hit 300 homers in the big leagues is really, really cool. What an opportunity, or what a moment he had in Colorado, putting it almost into that third deck for his 300. So just really cool for him, happy for him, man. And I obviously I know he's going to hit many more. So.
Yeah, I mean, 500 is a big number, but I was talking to some people this week, and they were like, it might not be as far-fetched as you think. Like, he's averages 30, if he averages 30 a year and he signs another, for another 4 or 5 years, he's going to be close. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big number, but I think he's one of the guys that can do it. He hits a lot, like he hits a lot of homers. So like that's something that he does, singles homers, right? Or doubles homers or whatever. He walks a lot, so I think that might hurt him a little bit. That's not a bad thing, right? But guys that walk a lot, it's really tough to, be able to kind of even that out. But he hits enough homers that I think he's really going to have a chance at it.
And last, just how about you? I mean, a few weeks ago in Cleveland, you and I were talking about, you're seeing fewer pitches in the strike zone than just about any hitter in baseball. I don't know that that's necessarily changed, but you're definitely not missing those pitches now, right? I think your average is up 40 points. Your OPS is up 70 points. So I got to ask, it's the hair, right? Like, gotta be the hair.
Yeah, short hair, short swing, man. No, I think for me, I think the last two games have really upset me, to tell you the truth. I feel like I've left some meat on the bones. But obviously I'm happy with where I am right now, just the way I'm trending. So I just got to keep trending the right way, and just the consistency, understanding, being consistent. And when I hit and everything else, like, we win games. And so I know that I need to do those things. And you guys know, man, and it's such a cliche a little bit, but like, I'm never happy with where I am. Like, it's just how I am, I guess. Like, I don't think I ever will be until I'm done playing. But it's just, I always want to keep going, always wanting to get better. One of my teammates said to me yesterday, I was like, God, dude, you got to be kidding me, over 3 kind of thing. And he goes, can you shut up? You just had 16 hits in the last week or whatever it was. And I go, it's not enough, man. And just, that's kind of like how I feel. Like, it's never enough. And that's something I need to work on mentally and physically and personally, just, enjoying the moment, enjoying, where I'm at, but also, like, I'm never satisfied, always wanting to move the needle. And, we got a lot of work to be done. Obviously, we're playing really good baseball right now, but a long season to go.
Bryce, this was a lot of fun, man. There's so many things that I love talking to you about. I love talking to you about specialization in sports. We can talk about that another day. Hopefully we get you back another time. But look, I know you get pulled in a ton of directions during the season, and you've got to get to the ballpark here pretty soon. So you're always really gracious with your time, and we're really thankful that you've shared some of it with us here at Phillies Extra from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thanks, brother. Always good talking to you.
You too. I want to thank Bryce Harper again for sitting down with us this week. Normally, this is the part of the show that we call Reporter's Notebook, when we discuss all the latest involving the Phillies, who arrived at Memorial Day with the best record in baseball at 34-19, thanks to a 9-1 run against the Pirates, Rockies, and A's, also known as the bottom dwellers of baseball. But there's going to be tougher tests ahead that will merit longer conversation, and we'll have them here. But since Bryce gave us so much time, why don't we skip straight to our final segment? We call this Hit and Run, where we take a question from a reader or a viewer. And this is a good time to mention that you can submit a question by email or on any of my social media accounts, which are listed right here. This week, we have a question over email from Joel Epstein, who writes, quote, I don't remember the Phillies bringing up a top prospect for just one game to make his MLB debut, sending him back down afterwards and using up an option for such small return. Could this signal that Dave Dombrowski is teeing up a trade where he has to throw in a top pitching prospect and not care about using up the option? Say Alec Boehm and Mick Abel for Rafael Devers. Thanks, Joel, for the question. It's a good one because you're right. It is unusual to call up a top prospect such as Mick Abel for only one day. Usually if a team calls up one of its best prospects, it's for a longer-term stay. But based on what I've been told, I would suggest that you don't read too much into it. For one thing, a player can burn only one option per season, regardless of how many times he gets called up. And based on the way Abel is pitching in AAA, the Phillies presumed they would have called him up at some point this season. So it didn't really matter if he spent one day in the majors or never went back to AAA ever again. The Phillies were still going to use only one option on him this year. Also, don't forget, the Phillies needed Taijuan Walker to start the second game of a doubleheader on May 14th, one day before they knew that Aaron Nola would need to go on the injured list with an ankle sprain. If they didn't think Nola could avoid the IL, or if they didn't have that doubleheader against the Cardinals in the first place, it would have been Walker, not Abel, who started on that Sunday against the Pirates. In effect, they went to a six-man rotation for one turn, and Abel was the sixth man. Now, this doesn't mean that Dombrowski isn't going to use a prospect in a deadline trade, most likely for a late-inning reliever. It might even be Abel who winds up getting moved, although I don't think the Phillies have much interest in using him simply as a chip. But I don't think using up one of Abel's options makes it more or less likely that he'll go at the deadline. Also, just as an aside, Joel, I love where your head's at with regard to the Phillies trading for Rafael Devers, given Devers' squabbles with the Red Sox over moving to third base or moving from third base to DH, and recently over them wanting him to play first. And of course, there's also a natural connection to Dombrowski, who was calling the shots in Boston when the Red Sox called up Devers in 2017. But as good a hitter as Devers is, unless the Red Sox agree to pay all or most of what I believe is more than $255 million that he's owed through 2033, Bowman Abel would be far too much to give up for him. Also, Devers is a left-handed hitter, and the Phillies lineup already leans left-handed, and he's also a poor defensive third baseman. I know he didn't want a DH, but that's definitely the best place for him. Okay, let's leave it there for this week. Quick programming note. Every episode of Phillies Extra is available on the Inquirer's YouTube channel, on Facebook, or by heading over to inquirer.com/live and clicking on the sports section to find a full archive of our interviews. If you've missed any, and our lineup now includes JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Bryson Stott, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Cole Hamels, Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, Bryce Harper, and many others, please go back and give those a listen. That'll do it for this week. Thanks again to my special guest, Bryce Harper. And there's no way we could do this show every week without the work of our producer, Angelica Irizarry, who puts everything together and makes sure that we look and sound just right. Until next week, I'm Scott Lauber. Thanks to everyone for listening, watching, and of course, for reading the Philadelphia Inquirer.